Hello, friends. Welcome back to math. Welcome to your last two math lessons. So today we are going to still be working with shapes, and we're going to be looking at chopping them up into equal pieces and looking at different shapes and how we would do that. So let's go watch our visual learning video to get started.
How can this square be divided into 3 equal shares?
You can use smaller squares to help.
You can draw lines to make 3 columns or 3 rows. These show equal shares that are all the same shape. How are these 2 blue squares alike?
Well, they're the same shape and they're being cut into the same number of pieces.
They are identical in size. Each blue square is divided into 3 equal shares that are all the same shape. Each share is made up of 3 small squares. How are the blue squares different?
The blue squares are different just because of which direction they're being chopped apart.
One blue square is divided into columns, and the other blue square is divided into rows. Here, each share is 3 squares. The shares are equal. Is each share the same shape?
Select your answer.
Well, one shape is a rectangle, and then the other two shapes are like L shapes, so they're not all the same shape.
These show equal shares that are not all the same shape. Each way shows 3 equal shares. Equal shares can be different shapes. Are there other ways to make 3 equal shares with this blue square?
Let's try it. So it says, can you make equal shares, 3 equal shares in another way? Drag the red lines into the blue squares to find out. So I'm going to try putting my line here and then maybe splitting it like this. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have 3 smaller squares in each of my chunks. I could also put maybe this one instead. No, let's see. So I think I'd have to move this. Let's see if I can make it another way. How about there? No, I'd have to have a different line, but there's definitely more than one way to make 3 equal shares.
Yes. One other way is to divide the square into one row of 3 small squares on the top and 2 L shapes of 3 small squares on the bottom. Now you know how you can make equal shares that do not have the same shape.
Okay, so let's go practice in our workbooks. Go ahead and get that workbook, and we're gonna go to page 896. Let's go look at what that looks like. Okay, so this is page 896, so make sure you're there with a pencil, and we're gonna do these guided practice problems together. So this is draw lines to show 2 different ways to divide the same rectangle into 2 equal shares. So whatever cuts that we make, it has to split these rectangles into 2 pieces that have the same number of little squares inside. So I know one way would be to just go down the middle and make 2 rows. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But now I can't go like this, right? That wouldn't work. That's not going to give me the same number of squares. So I have to get creative. What if I cut it like this? Does each side still have 3 pieces? Yeah, so I still have 3 squares on each side, which means I made it into 2 equal shares. So they want to know how many squares are in each equal share of the rectangle. How many did we put in each? 3. And we're going to describe it now. So we made each share into what part of the whole? Was it a half, a third, a fourth, a fifth? It's a half. So we're going to say each share is a half of the whole. So each side, each share is a half of the whole rectangle. We cut them in half. And how many halves did we have? 2. So each whole is 2 halves. So if you want the whole rectangle, then you're going to have 2 halves. Kind of like if you cut a pizza in half, the whole pizza would be 2 halves, 2 big pieces. Okay, we're gonna watch one more quick video and then we'll do just a couple more problems before we wrap it up.
I have a nice big square here. How can I divide it up into 4 equal shares? I'll use smaller squares to help me. Here's one way. All the shares are equal. How many small squares are there in each share? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 equal-sized small squares in each share. Here's a different way. Are all the shares equal? Yes, there are 4 equal-sized small squares in each share. Look at this. Does this show another way? That's correct. This shows a different way to show 4 equal shares. Let's see if we can find one more way to show 4 equal shares. How about this? Yes, this shows 4 equal shares. Even though the shares are a different shape, each share has 4 equal-sized squares. It's fun to find equal shares. Sometimes the equal shares will all be the same shape, and sometimes they won't. It all depends on how creative you want to be.
Okay, so let's go try it. Let's go back in our workbooks. Okay, I'm gonna turn the page. We're gonna do number 4 together. So let's look at number 4. So draw lines to show 2 different ways to divide the same rectangle into 4 equal shares. So same kind of thing as what we were doing on the other page. So we need to show equal shares that are the same shape. So the first one, we're going to do shapes that are the same. So I have to have 4 equal pieces. Well, I know I can go down the middle. That makes 2 equal pieces. And then if I want to split this, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I know 3 plus 3 is 6, so I'm going to split it 3 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now they want me to split this one up so that my shapes are different, but they still have 3 squares in each. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to count 3 squares and make that a shape. And then 3 squares and make this a shape. And then 3 squares and make that a shape. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And they all have 3 squares, so they're the same size, but they're just different shapes. I want you to think about number 4. How many squares are in each equal share? It's an easy question, isn't it? There's 3, right? Awesome. You're going to do number 6 in your homework, so we're not going to do that one yet. But let's go down to number 7. So number 7, we're going to do the same idea. We're going to split these 2 rectangles into 3 equal shares. So I want you to do this too. Let's see. Well, I see that there's 3 columns, so I'm going to split it in thirds like this. 1, 2. And then now I want to make it a little bit more creative. Let's see how many squares I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, let's see. On this side, I have 4 squares in each piece. So I'm going to try and make 4 squares in each piece on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I still have 3 shares, but they're different shapes. But they all still have 4 little squares inside. So they are equal shares. I want you to think about number 8. How can equal shares in a rectangle have different shapes? So think about that question. Think about the problems that we've done so far to help you. Write out your answer and then come back to me when you think you have an answer, and we'll talk about it and look at what my answer is. Okay, so how can equal shares in a rectangle have different shapes? So number 7 is a perfect example. My shares are different shapes, but they're still equal because they have the same number of smaller squares inside of them. So this one has 4, but this one also has 4. So no matter what, as long as my pieces have 4 smaller chunks inside, they're still going to be equal shares. So I'm going to say if each shape has the same number of squares, the shares are equal. Okay? So even though they're different shapes, as long as they still have the same number of squares inside, they're going to be equal shares. We're going to turn the page and do just a couple more problems. Okay, let's look at number 10. It says, Greg says that equal shares can be different in shape and size. Is Greg correct? So think about what we just said in number 8. We know they can be different shapes, right? Because we can make them different shapes, like an L shape or a straight line this way. But can they be different sizes? Are they still equal if they're different sizes? They're not equal if they're different sizes, are they? Because then they're not the same amount. So I'm going to say no. Equal shares can have different sizes, or sorry, different shapes, but they are equal in size. That's the whole point. They have to have the same amount in each one, or the same number of small squares, or whatever you're using to measure, or else it's not going to be equal. It's like if I cut up a brownie, they can't be different sizes because then they're not equal. So that answer would be no. We are going to do, you're going to do number 11, so let's go look at it. Okay, number 11 says, Donna drew this line in this rectangle to make 2 equal shares. Are the shares equal? Why or why not? So I want you to look at this, count up the squares, see what you come up with, write out your answer, and then come back to me when you think you have it all figured out, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, you ready? So here's what I'm going to say. Yes, they are equal, and let me show you why. Because if I count the number of squares, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then do you see these guys? This is a half and that's a half, and 2 halves make a whole, so this would be 10. These 2 guys, so 10 total. And this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, half, half equals a whole, so that's 10. So both shares have 10 full squares inside of them. So they are equal shares. So let's write it out. I'm going to say yes, each share is the same size. Okay. Each share has the same number of squares, right? Because we counted it out and there's 10 full little squares inside of each piece. Even though she cut them in half, there's still 2 halves, which makes a whole. So they are equal shares. Let's look at your homework. Okay, so today you're going to go back in the workbook and do problems 6, 9, and 12, the ones that we didn't do, and then go do your quick check. And after that, if your teacher has told you to do Math Facts Pro or iReady, then make sure you go and do that just like they have assigned it to you. I will see you back again for one more last lesson, and then we are done for the year, other than like our little quizzes that we have. So I will see you guys in the next video.